Hey garden friends, welcome back to Flower Patch. I am just giving a few things a quick spritz, given the soil. This is a oil or a mix of rosemary and other things. It's a blend that is not only great for getting rid of pests that could be getting onto your plants in the greenhouse or even in the garden, but also it's supposed to be a fungicide or like a mold killer. And I'm starting to get what is called snow mold or greenhouse mold on my plants. For some reason this time of year, I don't know if it's the lack of light or the temperatures with all the moisture, that it starts to occur and it can actually kill the plants rather than the cold. So I am just spritzing these plants down and it smells nice too, to protect them. The lavender here already was starting to show some of it. I'll show you a picture of what it looks like. But anyways, I came in here today to, and I think I forgot something, I will get that, talk to you about trailing plants in containers. Something that I have found great to use because they're tough, hardy. Some of them are evergreen, but I'll also tell you why you will not want to put them out in your landscape. If you're new here, my name is Pam and I garden in the mountains of Northern California. I am a Zone 8B, and yet I have a very short growing season because of where I live on the mountain. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and or share with your friends. They might learn something too. Hey, I am back. We are in the greenhouse as the light fades away. Hopefully there's enough light that this is not grainy. You know, it can get that way. But these spiller plants or trailing plants in containers or pots. Now, many times there's people, let me see, what kind is it? What is it they have to do three things in pots? It's the thriller, spiller, and the feature. I can't remember what it was, but I never adhere to that because it's too busy for me usually, unless the components, most of them are just greenery. But what I wanted to share with you is some that are very tough, that many times will overwinter for you, and then you don't have to replace them every single year. So that can save us all money when we do things like that. And or they can be propagated easily. So that's another thing. But they are so tough and they are so virulent that you don't want to put them in the landscape. And I'll give you some examples as we go along. So let's start off with the first one. I'm going to check back with my notes. So, you know, container gardening is really, really popular for a great reason. People with just a small deck, patio, whatever, can have a garden in a container. And also if you have very poor soil, or maybe you're in an area that the soil is just toxic, you can grow things in pots and containers. Or, like me, you're contending with critters like gophers that come up in the soil and eat your plants. So I have a lot of things in containers or raised beds that are protected now. So my first plant I wanted to share with you, ivy. You can see this is a variegated ivy, and this is more of a dark ivy, or just solid green. Perfect as a trailing plant with other plants. I have a photograph or a little short video of when we were at Disneyland. There is red geraniums in this planter and then the ivy. I loved it. I had to take a picture of it. So I thought I'm going to mimic that in a container in my garden somewhere because I just loved the effect. The great thing about ivy is, you know, mine will overwinter outside. They look rough, but they live through the winter, and then come spring, I give them a shot of fertilizer, give them some TLC, you know, pull up all the dead looking leaves, maybe give them a trim, and they pop right back. So that's a real big plus with the ivy for me. Now in your area, I don't know if it would live outside, but you can put it in your windowsills in your house. As long as it gets really bright light, it will make a great house plant too. They prefer outdoor light, but for the winter time, they'll make it through long enough so you can use them again in spring in your containers. Now, here's one that might be controversial for some people only because it can become a real bully in the landscape, and that is wire vine, and or it's also called angel vine. Now there are varietals that are not as aggressive as the one that has choked out trees and what have you once it took off. But even if you had that one, I was given one, so I don't know what exactly it is, but I do not put it in the landscape because it roots along wherever it touches the ground, and that can become problematic. So mine are in containers. I have 2 pots in front of my Primrose Cottage, which is also my painting studio, and that I have some boxwoods that I'm letting grow up, topiary. I want to make topiary with them, but around their base I have wire vine, and it just spills out. It's so delicate looking. It stays evergreen, and it's easy to root. It just makes a pretty spiller in the plant with the other plants. So that is what, if you keep it contained like that, it's perfectly safe, but it's just super easy and fills in really quick. So you could spread it amongst a lot of containers if you want to, just for that airy element. Now, another one I love because it's really pretty, I love it in the white. There's also a white with blue that is really elegant, is trailing lobelia. Now, there's the one that just mounds. I have had the best success with trailing lobelia, and it will spill out. The blue is magnificent. I like white because white is a good offset for whatever other plant you may have as the thriller in a container. Now, I've used them just in hanging baskets on my porch, where they're hanging from the eave, other things like that. So trailing lobelia is just a gorgeous choice in your containers, and depending on the color, it will go with so many other plants. So if you have been around here for a while, you will know that I love sweet potato vine, ornamental sweet potato vine, and that I have shared how I overwinter it indoors, how I propagate it, and I love especially the ones that are rampant. Some people don't. They say, oh, they are bullies. They take over the whole container. I love them. I just cut them back and start more in more containers. So I do not have a hard time with the ones that are very, very vigorous. They are the most beautiful chartreuse, the ones I really love, the lime-colored ones. Chartreuse green. I'm looking ahead, like, what other ones do I have? I've bought a variegated one that was like a tricolor. The purple, the dark ones, the black ones are beautiful as well. But it's the lime chartreuse color that really first won my heart. And they do beautiful in containers. I'll plant them at the base of roses in containers. I'll plant them in the ground. You know, come winter, they will not overwinter for me. So they're killed off. So I don't have to worry about them becoming a bully in my garden. But because they don't live through the winter, I do take cuttings, take mine in the house in the winter, let them grow on. I take them back out in the spring when it's warm enough, and I plant them back out in my containers. And that way I keep it budget friendly. And they're super easy to do. It's kind of a struggle for me sometimes to get them to overwinter without being infected with bugs, usually spider mites, or something else. It's not like they really like being in the house, but they do make it, and I can use them again once it heats up. So patience and a little TLC, and it all works. Now this last year, I started one of my favorites, and it's trailing geraniums, or ivy geraniums. And they are so delicate. Some are bushier than others. The ones I started, they're actually looking a little frail because they've been in the freezing cold out here in the greenhouse. Someone said they were more delicate than zonal geraniums. I haven't found them to be so, but I am slowly but surely getting them taken into Primrose Cottage where it does stay above freezing so that I can make sure and save them. Those I started from seed. It was super simple. They did great. And I got an array of colors, but they do beautiful. They're also airy and light at the base of other plants as a trailing in your pots. And also you could use them on hanging baskets, like along a porch or something like that. That's worked very well for me too. Now, nasturtiums, you can get trailing nasturtiums. They will, or even all nasturtiums will trail. They can just take off like crazy. Nasturtiums, you don't want it to have too rich of soil. That diminishes blooming. You get a lot more greenery. But if it's just as a trailer with other plants, that may work great for you. And the occasional blooms or the amount of blooms you get may be just a win. So, but those are very, very easy to grow from seed. You can direct sow them in the spring in your containers or even in the ground and get beautiful, beautiful plants. Petunias, obviously, you know I love petunias, especially wave petunias for their trailing habit. Wave petunias especially will get very large, be very vigorous, and trail 4 feet or more. If you have them like I like them on a deck rail or in other containers, oh, excuse, that startled me, sorry. Or as a ground cover. I planted some in the ground over in the entrance garden, and they just covered a whole area that had the porous soil. It was a hot, hot spot next to the road, so you know it gets the road when when it rains and water runs off of it, so that's not healthy. But they did great. They just bloomed, covered the ground, and I had no more weeds there. I really wanted it as a weed suppressant. Worked perfectly. But petunias, trailing petunias, cascading petunias, there's a lot of names for them. They will be the ticket for your containers, pots, and or ground cover. Now, I try to mention the ones that can become a bully in the landscape. I try to make sure I warn you of that. Now, Vinca minor is a hated plant by many because of its tenacity and its ability to just take over hillsides, which a lot of people use them as stabilizers for the soil on hillsides, and it works beautifully for that. It'll cover it, it'll get blooms, little purple flowers all the time, whenever, and it's beautiful. But for those who don't want that aspect of it, keeping it in a container or pot is perfect, and it will vine out, trail down, be beautiful, but not be the problematic plant. It can be in the ground. I have one that is variegated up in front. I keep an eye on it. I chop it back where I don't want it. You know, I dig down and dig out the roots, and I just let it go where I do want it, and I have been able to keep it contained. But in a container, I think it would be magnificent, even by itself. The variegated foliage is beautiful, and the flowers are elegant too. So it's an option for pots and containers for most people. Be warned of its ability to get out of control in the landscape. Another one that could be problematic for people, especially in the Pacific Northwest or areas where it's very rainy and moist, etc., is creeping jenny. There's a darker green one, I think it's emerald green, and then there's the one that's more chartreuse colored. I keep them in pots, in containers. I do have some that is in the ground. I keep that contained. I don't completely eradicate it because it's like my stock plant where I go dig it up and put in containers where I want to use it. And so by that way, I can keep it from becoming too much of a problem out in my garden. But I do love it, and it creeps down. Even in containers, it can become a little aggressive. So I will put it, let me get a pot here. And I did this last summer. I think this is a lobelia I had in here. I put it in a terracotta pot, and I sunk it down into the soil of the container so it wouldn't take over the whole container and choke out everything else. So this really did the trick, and because it's the terracotta and it's absorbent, or water can absorb through it, then it was easily kept moist too. So that is how I use creeping jenny in pots where it might become a little out of hand. Another one of my favorites is coral sedum. Now there's one called Angelina, then of course there's the lemon coral sedum. There's all kinds of sedums, so not just the coral, that I use as trailing plants in my containers. They're beautiful, they're tough, they're drought tolerant. Now, if you want to keep them healthy, you kind of want to plant them with other things that are needing less water as well, so you don't drown them. But I have had some in my roses, my potted roses. I have a purple one. I cannot remember the name of it. I'm sorry. But it did beautiful in there, even though I watered my rose as often as it needed. So just test things out if you don't know. But the coral sedums that I have are that beautiful chartreuse color. And when they trail down, it just adds that. I love that punch of color from those type of plants, kind of like the creeping jenny too. It's the same color zone, etc. So I think that's all on my list. There are tons of other kinds of trailing plants. The alyssum I get, it will trail beautifully, and I had so much last year I planted it along the edge of a garden bed. Did beautiful. But that's another one I love to put with other plants. I love the scent of alyssum. That's why they call it sweet alyssum. Some people call it lobularia. But if you go to like a garden center, you'll see alyssum on the tag, not lobularia, usually. And yeah, those, and you can get different colors in that. My favorite is the white, but there's a lavender, and now there's a mix I saw that has peachy color. I haven't grown it yet, but I'm going to try it this year. And then I grow my alyssum from seed. I did buy some last year from a garden center as well. But the one I get from Botanical Interests, it's a beautiful alyssum. It grows so easily. In fact, I've had many of it reseed itself, which other varieties did not. I wish I could remember. I will put it up on the screen for you when I get the name again. I don't know why I forget these things sometimes. Okay, I think that's it. There's, like I said, there's fuchsias, there's all kinds of things. I just gave you the things that I found easier to grow and or were easy to overwinter so that I could use them again the following year and not have to worry about buying more plants. And or like with the ivy geraniums, I grew them from seed. So my friends, that is the list of the trailing plants that I find very helpful to have on hand to fill in. Oh, that's filler. Filler, spiller, and thriller. There we go. I knew I would remember eventually. But these are the plants I use. Oh, lamium. I'm sorry, I almost forgot lamium. Lamium is another one some people can consider bullyish out in the garden. I had made a video, I have not posted it yet, but I will, of how to keep a bully contained. And I have lamium out in the cottage rose garden. And then in the secret cottage garden, I have another one. It's a white. I love them. The silver foliage is so gorgeous, and it just lightens up a darker area. So I was waiting to show you how I transplant it. I dig it up and transplant it to different areas I want it before I share that whole video. So that's coming up in the future, I swear, I promise. Okay, there you have it. I don't even know how many I gave you. I want to say 10 trailing plants, but I don't remember how many I have, that you can use over winter, year after year, and not have to spend another dime on trailing plants. Okay, I will see you in the next video where I will be sharing something else that I think you should know. Okay, bye.